You could say that there's not a lot going on in southeastern New Mexico. Not on the surface, anyway. But in this part of the country, amazing hidden worlds await you if you keep your senses acute and keep exploring. And that's what led us to the unbelievable Carlsbad Caverns National Park. Today, day 13, began with a motel lobby breakfast and a reminder that Roswell, New Mexico enjoys its status as the UFO capital of the world, even if it doesn't take it all particularly seriously. The local newspaper doesn't anyway, but I like the general vibe of its reporting overall. There wasn't much to do around the motel, to be honest, so we jumped in the car and hit the road, on our way to the famous Carlsbad Caverns National Park, an enormous underground cave system. And hurtling along Highway 285, also known by the mouthful nickname the Edgar D. Mitchell Apollo 14 Astronaut Highway, Maceo and I watched a jet in the sky. A little reminder that big advanced space things happen in these lonesome, dusty hills. Somewhere beyond those poor cows that keep getting abducted, dissected, and then dropped back down to Earth. Carlsbad Caverns is beyond the towns of Artesia, home to the nation's only underground high school/fallout shelter, and Carlsbad, hometown of actor Bruce Cabot, who starred in an early, famous tale about a fearsome, non-human invader. And speaking of life forms being dropped onto New Mexico from above, Artesia is heavily featured in the 1976 David Bowie movie, The Man Who Fell to Earth.
I'm on my way to New Mexico now.
It was partially shot in White Sands, too, incidentally. Yet another cosmic connection to the stars in this area. The park's visitor center is a modest, functional little building tucked deep in the rolling, gentle Guadalupe Mountains. Inside, we checked out the amazing 3D models of the cave system, and picked up the usual souvenir token, and the Carlsbad Caverns brochure. I've been enjoying collecting these NPS brochures along the way, but I have to say that the Carlsbad Caverns one is really something. It's an engrossing little piece of literature, in and of itself, covering the history of the caves, both geological and human, featuring excellent drawings and photos, and written to give a real sense of the awesome spectacle below the ground. A ranger told us that the final admittance into the caves was 3:30. Oh, and that the elevator back up was out of order today. After the Toyota picnic back in the visitor center, we discovered that we were wrong about the time. Since Carlsbad Caverns is so near the Texas border, and the time zone there is an hour ahead of New Mexico, cell phone towers often get confused about what time it really is, jumping back and forth and causing all sorts of ongoing problems. We hadn't needed to rush to eat so fast, we had an extra hour. It took about 20 minutes for our eyes to adjust to the darkness. The 20% grade of the trail can be tough on the knees, but on the way down you keep having this feeling that you're nearing something momentous. Carlsbad Caverns National Monument was established in 1923. After a photo exhibition in the town of Carlsbad by spelunker Jim White became a public sensation. A skeptical inspector from the Calvin Coolidge administration came to see for himself. Suitably wowed, he reported his amazement to the president back in Washington. It became a national park in 1930. The caves began as an ocean reef 250 million years ago, and much later the now dry, hollowed-out rooms began receiving droplets of rainwater about 500,000 years ago. As they slowly seep through the ground, the drops pick up minerals and form calcite. The calcite crystals cluster where the drips land on the floor or where they fall from the ceiling, forming all sorts of wondrous shapes. The shapes have cool names, and it's fun to look for all of them. Stalagmites, which rise from the floor. Stalactites, which hang from the ceiling. Columns, where those two join. And others like soda straws, draperies, popcorn, and more. And this isn't some process consigned to the ancient world. It's a work in progress. Even from the tourist walkway, you see the water dripping in the ghostly pools. To be honest, some of the larger formations kept reminding me of the creature from the Roger Corman movie It Conquered the World. But down here, who needs the cartoonish aliens of Roswell? Carlsbad Caverns is the real deal, a spooky, captivating, and utterly otherworldly place. It's quiet and cool, a constant 56 degrees Fahrenheit year-round. The lighting is tasteful and dramatic, but really it's hard to convey the feeling of walking around the big room, which is the largest cave chamber in North America. Carlsbad Caverns is a place where adjectives and nouns fail. And then you climb back up, back out into the surface world of New Mexico and the Chihuahuan Desert, back to where the bats and the swallows flit around the natural cave entrance, back to the land of the pretty but deceptively simple hills that sit atop the cave, to the desert shrubs and the snakes in the road, and the dazzled travelers on their way back to the highway and back home. We stopped at a touristy-looking but real post office in White City, population 7, to mail the Carlsbad Caverns postcard to ourselves and headed back to Roswell the way we came. But this time, everything seemed different, because now we knew we'd seen the land below. The oil wells and the little towns and the nervous cows were only one part of a bigger and far stranger reality. Also making me buoyant was the fact that blood sugars had been excellent all day long, the best diabetes day of the trip so far. I owed it to the strenuous stroll underground. That newspaper this morning, placed there for me by the travel gods, I assume, couldn't have been more right. Visiting Carlsbad Caverns is like a glimpse into an additional dimension, and the lesson of it is, there are always multiple more layers to what you think you see at first. Tomorrow is a day off in the motel in Roswell, the first since Yuma. The highlight is chatting on Skype about my travels as a type 1 diabetic with Stacy Sims for an episode of her diabetes-related podcast. That and the cactus jelly picnic in the room.